week, I have something for anyone who's having trouble with dating in the modern world. I have Rosalind Moody, a writer and a former editor of the UK's leading spiritual magazine, Soul and Spirit. So she's a little bit writer and she's a little bit woo-woo. She's also a Gemini, and she's just written a book called The Spark. So let's break it down. So anyone who's listening going, oh my God, this is me, it's so toxic out there, are you suggesting that there is a way to make modern dating less toxic?
Absolutely, because unbeknownst to us, we are quite toxic ourselves sometimes. And in the book, there are some ways to really hold the mirror up to yourself and to the outside world to see what's going wrong here and how we can improve things for ourselves.
Right.
So it's a bit of a deep dive.
All right. So let's start at the beginning. What was the inspiration for writing The Spark? What inspires you to write about it? Were there specific incidents or friends that motivated you to put fingers to keyboard?
Oh, that's a good question. I always wanted to write a book. I was writing books. I was writing stories from the age of 5, as soon as I could hold a pencil, for my grandparents. And I never thought this would be the book. This book started out as a journal, many, many Word documents. I just thrash at my laptop with feelings were coming out of who I was dating. Did I like how they treated me? Did I like them? I had to feel out loud on the page, as it were. So that journal kind of came to something. And I think it was one of the Christmases of lockdowns. I just printed out everything that I had and thought, what do I have here? Do I have a story? Do I have a book that could help people? Because it's really a service angle. I felt so lame and ashamed of being left on the quote unquote left on the shelf as a single person when everyone around me was coupled up and cohabiting and getting married. I was living in a share house post gap year, feeling just really sad and lonely. So if I can help anyone feel less sad and lonely and more empowered in their singledom, then that's what this book is for.
All right. So let's define toxicity. In your book, how do you define a toxic relationship? And what are some of the common red flags that might indicate that someone's in a toxic relationship? Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, there's quite a few levels of toxic. I mean, the book starts with one of the highest levels of toxic, which is narcissism. And I think a lot of us have met a narcissist. I was in a relationship with what I call a spiritual narcissist, this character called Supernova. And the red flags would not stop flying, but I did not see them because I was so in love, as we all are when we're caught up in a toxic tangle with someone. Even if it's a friend or a boss, it's really, really hard to see from the inside. And sometimes you can't rely on people from the outside telling you, because it's definitely not what you want to hear. So the difference and the way to know is how you actually feel in your nervous system, in your body. Your body can tell you. And we're so distracted from the chaos of the modern world that it's really hard to zone in, step back and actually listen to our body and see what we're actually feeling. That's why I had to use my notes to see how I was feeling, because I didn't have a dialogue internally. I had to have a dialogue with words on a page. So first of all, if it's feeling a little bit unsafe in your body, and sometimes when we date someone who's not toxic, it can feel unsafe because we're not used to it, because it's unfamiliar. And in terms of dating and relationships, we go for people that feel familiar from our childhood or adolescent patterns. So that's a different thing. I'm talking about dating people who really are toxic, and there are quite a few signs. So things like love bombing, things like gaslighting, they're all things I experienced, and I don't want anyone to feel like they're the only ones who have ever gone through it, because a lot of us have, and it carries a lot of shame to have been taken along a ride like that. Whereas if we step back into our truth and just step back and say, you know what, I don't need anyone to validate me, even if it's love bombing or not. I'm just going to be by myself for a bit. I'm going to get to know my own body, so that when I go back into the dating world, my body will tell me if this is a red flag or if it's a green flag or a purple flag, which I go into later in the book.
So let's define love bombing, because that's sort of a term that's grown up in the past few years. For anyone out there who's in the dating world, or maybe who's out in the dating world for the second time around, post a divorce, what is love bombing? And how do you not confuse it with someone who just thinks you're really fabulous?
Yeah, that's a good question. Love bombing is when, in the early stages of a relationship, the person just showers you with glorified comments, compliments, and gifts, and just makes you feel like you're on this magical roller coaster ride, and it's euphoric. I've never been happier in my life than when I was with Supernova, and I admit that. It can feel so high and glorious that you're not grounded. So your root chakra is really going off because there is no grounding here. And that means the person love bombing can just whip it away, and they can whip the ground from underneath your feet really quickly, and you just fall down. So you know that you're being love bombed if it's a crazy roller coaster ride. If one day you're up because he's or she's showered you with love, and then the next day they've cut you down with some cutting remarks and you're kind of floundering, and then the next day you make up, and it's that nervous system crazy ride that we should all be very suspicious of. But I mean,
can I just ask you,
yeah.
do you believe that this is something that people do consciously? Like, do
No.
they think, I'm going to love bomb them, and then I'm going to pull the rug from underneath them, and then they're going to be so confused, they're going to be putty in my hands? Or is it just something people do without meaning to? And is it not just the first flush of relationships? I'm just curious to know what you think.
I don't think people do it consciously. I don't think people are really out to get people like this. I never wrote this book for revenge or to demonize. I wrote it to humanize. We are all capable of being toxic and kind of getting carried away with ourselves, and not knowing our deep feelings that, oh, actually, I don't really like this person as much as I tell them I like them. So if we get to know ourselves better with the self-work, then we will be less able to love bomb, because we know we can lean back and just be in flow and see where the relationship is meant to go. I don't believe that we need to have such a big romantic start anymore. Like, I was really caught up with that in my 20s, which is what this whole book charts, is the chaos to the conscious in my 20s. So I know I don't think people do it consciously, but it feels like they do it. It feels like they're really doing it. The whole definition of narcissist is that it appears that they love themselves so much, but actually there's a deep inner self-hatred. And that goes back to, how they were brought up. Or, I mean, I need to say that not everyone we call a narcissist is actually a narcissist.
Yeah.
Like, it is a term that's really thrown around, but
Yeah.
I have gone over and over it in my head. Is Supernova really a narcissist? I've asked friends, was he really that bad? And they were like, yes, he was really that bad. So maybe I've actually gone easy on him in this book, but you don't need anyone else's definitions. It's how you feel inside, the dialogue with yourself, with consciousness, with the universe, with God, whoever you believe in. You need that dialogue with something internal, so that when a narcissist or a toxic person comes along, we don't just fawn at them because we've finally got a dialogue with someone. We've already got it in ourselves, so we don't need the validation of someone bringing us up just to drop us down.
Okay. So, there's been a lot of talk in the last 20 years about toxic masculinity. Are we now going to confront toxic femininity?
Oh, I really like that. In that we're so kind of, we're a little bit aggressive.
Surely it can work both ways. It's
Yeah.
not only men that are toxic. I think we all know that.
No, not at all. Toxic femininity, in the sense of, yes, we can be toxic and what I call fuck boys and fuck girls. So these players, Casanovas, they can kind of charm us, manipulate us just to get what they want. Girls can be that too, for sure. And I don't make anyone admit to that in the book. It's just, if you are attracting a certain type of person, that might be a mirror to you. So this is a way to look in the mirror and to kind of give yourself some grace and compassion and to soften, because in this modern world, and I think a lot of my girlfriends feel like this, like, how do we be in our divine feminine as well as running a business and having to talk our truth and be aggressive sometimes to get what we want? Like, it feels like a really hard balance sometimes, but there is some divine feminine, divine masculine dynamics in the book that I would invite people to lean into, because we don't always need to be so hard and independent. Like, it's really lonely to be so independent sometimes. And we don't want to demonize men all the time, because, as I'd learned, there are actually some men in my life that were lovely, that were not capable of being toxic or hurtful at all. It wasn't all men. If you believe all men are shitbags, that's exactly what you're going to manifest.
Exactly. So, and in the book, I have started reading, but I only got the PDF yesterday.
Yeah.
Does it go through? Because one, I know Rosa initially from her days as the editor of Soul and Spirit, which was such a brilliant magazine. And, you know, in there was just wall to wall astrology and crystals and Reiki and, you know, ceremonies. Do you offer that in the book, or is it literally just actually you just need to sit down and look into yourself and, you know, realize that all your relationships are a mirror?
Yeah, there are some rituals that people can lean into. I try and make it like a spiritual buffet table. So not everyone will read things and love everything. Some people will leave angels on the table, or they'll leave crystals on the table. They can just pick and choose, like a kind of picky board, and take the rituals that really work with them. So I really lean into law of attraction, moonology, astrology. I love all of those things, but I'm not so into the out of body experiences and the astral travel and angels yet. But I feel like as my life progresses, then I will lean into things when they really are of service to me, and hopefully with a partner too, that we can go along on a journey together, and they can pick and choose what they want and I can pick and choose what I want. In that, I mean, Supernova did teach me a lot of spiritual kind of modalities that were alien to me. I was a complete spiritual beginner when I met him, and he was the one to kind of introduce them to me.
He was on the spiritual path.
He was, yeah, which was
right. And how did he get it? So what happened? Like, surely if you're on the spiritual path, you're becoming conscious and you're not going to behave like that.
Yeah, he was on the wrong path.
Right.
Yeah, he was on the kind of high and mighty guru path. He kind of became a guru to me. And I feel like his crown chakra was just askew. Like, he was blocked. The ego was running the show. And especially in our breakup, it really was.
So does he know you've written this book?
We're not in contact anymore, and I don't think he knows. I mean, he won't recognize himself. So I'd be interested if he does.
Yeah.
I don't wish him any harm. I wish him the best, but we'll see. I mean, I doubt anyone in this book will recognize himself and come to me. And I'm still friends with some of them because we've made peace, and I confronted what I got wrong. They have to. You know, it's definitely been a healing process for me.
Yeah. So one of the biggest complaints I hear from people in the modern dating world is of being ghosted. So do you tackle that in the book about, you know, why is it happening? What can I do? Do you have any advice for anyone out there who's, you know, or maybe who's had their heart broken, or what advice do you give people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. It's such a problem, and it's so rude, and it happens to me. It still happens to me all the time, but our approach.
Yeah. And what people do these days, isn't it? I've been told they ghost you and then they block you. So that's it. There's no chance to say, oh, I'm sorry, did I say the wrong thing? Or
yeah, it's so hard. It really, you this is why it feels like you're never on solid ground, because the rug has always been ripped out from under your feet. But it's our approach and our mindset that matters here, because we can't control other people. If they want to act like fools, then go ahead, and they're showing us that they were wrong for us anyway, and it's the trash taking itself out. But it does still really hurt. Like, I'm not gonna bypass it. It really stings. Each time we can pretend like it doesn't, it does. And we can get really in our heads about it. So I talk that if we're kind of attracting the fuckboys and the narcissists and the wrong people, look in the mirror at ourselves. Maybe if we're complaining that people are emotionally unavailable and they do those things like ghosting and blocking, where are we emotionally unavailable to ourselves? So I realized I was heavily emotionally unavailable, which is why I was attracting all these non-committal people. And it really teaches you to go in and see where and why you're unavailable to yourself. And if we bypass ourselves and say, oh, I didn't like him anyway, he blocked me, then we're cutting off that stream of emotional availability. So if we actually sit with it and go, that really stung, that really hurt, I know it shouldn't, but it really does, and I acknowledge that, and I'm going to really just send myself compassion and love and treat myself just as I wish someone would treat me, then we can kind of unlock the patterns. And that's what the book kind of teaches, is the tangling of all those patterns and mirrors, just being a little bit calmer.
And what about someone who's listening who's, you know, not just been ghosted, but maybe been cheated on? You know, what advice do you have for people like that in a spiritual sense of, you know, how to get yourself back together, body, mind, and spirit?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have to do something really drastic and take a year off dating. We have to just think, that really hurt. I'm broken. I can't offer someone my best self right now. I can't even be my best self for myself right now, or my friends or my family. So I need to kind of retreat. And I think the availability of all these dating apps means that we could just be on apps and always available to all these strangers. But if we actually take a conscious effort to delete the apps and go on a kind of man break or man ban, as I call it, then we can actually consciously choose ourselves and get over any heartbreak. Even if we call ourselves a hermit, it's fine to be in your hermit era. That's fine. We don't always have to be dating. Even if we're single, we don't always have to be dating on the lookout. Sometimes it's exhausting to constantly be on the lookout, and it feels like a chore to be on the apps, and especially on Bumble when the girl has to talk first or the match expires, it feels like admin. So sometimes when we're really nursing a really big block like that, a really big hurt, just saying no to the apps and no to actually being on the dating world is really, really liberating, because we can just focus back on ourselves. And there's a lot of self-love and healing rituals that I share that worked for me.
Can you give us an example?
I mean, per chakra, there's loads. I mean, I always go back to the gratitude gaze, which is because we talk a lot about the male gaze, obviously, and we think we need a lover to look at us like we're the most amazing person. But then that kind of makes way for love bombing, because we don't actually want to be put on a pedestal. We shouldn't be on a pedestal to anyone. So if we actually take that healing time to ourselves, where it's a man break month or a man break year, like I did, we can hold space for ourselves. And as much as this book is about dating, it's actually about being alone and being consciously alone, and not that that means lonely every time. But the gratitude gaze is kind of just holding space for ourselves in the bath or in the mirror or in bed, and just sending love to every part of our body and every part of our mind, bit by bit, a bit like mindfulness meditation, where you kind of breathe oxygen and light to each part of your body. We're taking our eyes and just scanning ourselves with self-love, looking at ourselves like a lover would, and really bringing ourselves back home to ourselves.
Okay, amazing. So, as someone who's been on the spiritual path for a very long time, and also, you know, you've edited Spirit and Destiny, you work with Mind Body Spirit Festival, do you have a theory about the urge or compulsion of human beings to pair up?
Yeah, I think it's obviously natural. It feels natural to us. Like, my body tells me I want to be with a man, but then my brain tells me I don't need to be. So there's a disconnect in myself. And our mothers are asking us why we're not coupled up, and then we go on dating apps and it's very, very hard to get coupled up. So there's definitely a disconnect, and it's harder than ever to find someone that really wants to commit and settle down. But then I'm kind of on a journey past that, where I'm kind of on a journey of polyamory slightly. So I'm thinking, can one person be everything to you? Can we have different partners that mirror a different part of ourselves and meet
Just
different needs?
define polyamory for anyone who doesn't know about polyamory yet.
So it means many loves. So it means having various different partners of varying commitment levels to
At the same time.
simultaneously, yeah. And although I'm not seeing anyone right now, I don't even have one of the partners, let alone two, it is something that I've dipped my toe in to explore the fact that, do we need to always be coupled up, even though society comes in pairs? Like, everything comes in pairs. Roller coaster seats come in pairs. Chicken breasts come in pairs. You know, like double rooms on holiday it's for two people. So it can be really, really frustrating when you're just one person that wants to be one person, or wants to be part of a twosome or part of a throuple or something. It can be really, really frustrating to see the world as people accept it and think this doesn't connect with me.
But do you think on a spiritual level we are meant to be coupled up, thrupled up, polyamorous, whatever? Or, I mean, I don't know. My feeling, I sort of discovered this thought 20 years ago, say, or 15 years ago, that one of the reasons why we like to couple up, mostly, some people obviously are going to do more than one person, but the majority is just one couple of two people. I think one of the reasons why people do that is because I'm really into manifesting, as you know. And I think that when you have two people on the same page about what they want to manifest, and especially once you get married, have a kid, and then it's like, right, now we want to, and just go down that path that everybody seems to go down, or maybe they're not going to in the future, who knows? Maybe people like you saying, I don't actually think I necessarily want to be, you know, just with one person, maybe I want to be polyamorous. But I always felt it was about co-creating, that you've got two people who come together who in theory want the same thing and who therefore can create a life together. So I kind of feel like that's what it's about. But what do you think?
I would love that. I do want my happy ever after. I grew up on Disney films. I would love that. And yet I feel like, I mean, if that one person in our lives helps us grow and we can build something amazing with them and co-create something amazing, like an amazing future and a family with them, then those are the questions we should be asking ourselves. Those are two solid grounding questions. A, can they help you grow as a person, as an individual? And B, can you build something amazing together? And if someone comes along and ticks both those boxes for me, then great. And I have been in previous things post-book where they've ticked both those things for me, and then they've unticked one of the boxes and left one of the boxes ticked. And then a few months later, both boxes are left unticked, and we're not aligning anymore. And there we go. We've learned what we're meant to learn together as a couple, and now we're going our separate ways. So I do believe that there is a lot to be said for couples in the universe that can really create something amazing for themselves individually and together. Like, that is definitely what I hope to be in my future. But right now, it just doesn't feel like it's fitting for me. Like, I don't need to be in a partnership right now. And that I finally feel like that's okay. I'm fine to be single. I prefer to be single right now, but it won't be forever.
If anyone who's listening has been in a toxic dating situation, having trouble on the apps, being cheated on, being love bombed, being ghosted, whatever, and they're having trouble letting go, do you have a suggestion for a technique that they can do, as well as looking into their own, you know, heart and seeing why they've created this? Do you have any go-to techniques for people to use as well as part of their journey back to sort of feeling whole again, when they may or may not decide they want to start dating again?
I mean, apart from all the self-work and self-love in the book, then, and if they really want to be out on the dating apps and to find that real person, and I mean, I normally say to those people, take a break and really lean back. But if they really don't want to and they want to be in the dating game, there are some things that I can help to tell them to help manifest the match that they want. And I mean, like you, I mean, manifesting is just everything. It's just so exciting to me. And it's things like, I call it ad lib affirmation in the book, where you're just, and I did this when I was in my man break. So I was just kind of concocting what I wanted in a partner for when I was ready to be back in the game. And it's just like being on your own. Maybe you're going to bed, it's a bedtime ritual, and you're just kind of talking to yourself. And we're not being crazy here. Like, we're talking to the universe. We are talking to someone. Someone is listening in this universe. And we're saying, my boyfriend is so, so funny. He makes me laugh so much. He makes the best cup of tea. He always brings me a cup of tea in bed. And it's kind of just rambling. And it's this stream of consciousness, as if we were journaling without kind of automatic writing, but with our words. And that's why it's ad-libbing, because it's just streaming our consciousness. And that is what helps us talk them into manifestation. Or we can do things like draw a stick man with the qualities that we want in him and put it on our bathroom mirror. All of these kind of proactive little rituals we can do, so that when that person is ready, because we only have free will over ourselves. That person, it might take 5 months or 5 years to come in, but when he's ready or she's ready and it's the right time for them, they can just slide into our world, just like sliding into our DMs. And that is a way for someone to get really truly who they want.
Right. Well, we will stay tuned and find out who the lucky guy is for you eventually, Ros.
Yeah.
All right. So tell people, sorry, yeah, go on.
Whenever he's ready. No rush.
Whenever he's ready, exactly. And when you're ready as well, because you say you're happy to be single right now.
Yeah.
All right. So tell people about the book, when it's coming out, where they can find it, and yeah, anything else that you need to say.
So here in the UK, it's already out. It came out on the 18th of April, which is a really amazing, exciting and surreal day. It's on Amazon.co.uk. It's in Waterstones and in independent booksellers, and via my publisher, September Publishing. But if you're listening from the US, it's going to be available in Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com from July the 9th. And if you're in Australia, then it's going to be available from May time via Booktopia and Amazon as well, I believe. If you want any stockist details, you can DM me via Instagram or my website, rosalindmoody.com, and I'd be happy to help.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Ros.
Thank you
good
so
to talk
much.
to you.
You too.
And I hope this helps anyone out there who's going through a rough time and who wants to take a slightly more spiritual angle on trying to navigate modern dating.
Yes. Good luck, everyone. Thank you so much.